So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome here to Lichfield District Council, this planning committee meeting here on the 24th of January 2024. And first of all, I'd like to welcome all the members and also all the members of the public who are here this evening. And of course, we are being joined as normal by those watching remotely on the council's YouTube channel. So a very warm welcome to you all. We will start off this evening with the first item on your agenda, members, and that is apologies for absence. And I have received two. I've had apologies from Councillor Vernon and Councillor Evans. And I think that if I look around, we have a full house with the exception of those two. So I have no further need to ask for any apologies. Thank you. Moving on to item 2 on the agenda, it's declarations of interest. So if I could ask members, anyone who has a particular interest of any nature, if you could please raise your hand to show. So I'll start off with Councillor Wilcox, please. Thank you very much, Councillor Wilcox. And Councillor Ashton, please. Okay. Yes, please make sure that when you're using a mic, first of all, you switch it on. That's rule number 1. And then rule number 2 is that it's fairly close to your mouth so that it picks up the sound quite well. So thank you. And Councillor Ashton, if you wouldn't mind just repeating that, please. Thank you.
It's on now. I'm the councillor for Stow Ward, which affects the Debenhams site.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Ashton. And Councillor Anketel, I think you're probably the only other one with a declaration of interest.
I'm one of the councillors for St John's, which includes the South of Lichfield site.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Salter, I believe you wish to speak as well.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Good evening. To sort of keep the ball rolling on the same theme, I'm the ward member for Shenstone, which is the South Lichfield site.
Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Harvey Coggins, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a ward councillor for St John's as well, same as Councillor Anketel. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have any others at all wish to register an interest? No, I think that's probably it then. We've completed item 2 on the agenda. We now move on to item 3, is the minutes of the previous meeting. Now, normally, this would be a meeting which had taken place 4 or 5 weeks prior to this evening. But of course, this is an exceptional meeting. And so it's only 9 days since we last met, members. And I'm sure that you're all delighted to be back here after such a short interlude. And so the minutes of the previous meeting were held on the 15th of January. They have been circulated and you will have had a chance to have read them. So are you happy that I sign those minutes as they appeared in your circular, your email? Are you happy that I sign those as a true and correct record of the meeting which took place here on the 15th of January 2024, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Those minutes are duly signed. Members, we now move on to the main item on the agenda, which is the planning applications, of which we have 3 this evening. And the first one is application 23/00516/FUH. And to take us through this particular application, which is 29 Alrewes Road, Kings Bromley, I'm going to call upon James Hyde, Mr. Hyde, Planning Assistant, who will take you through this report. And then we will have speakers, an objector, and also the ward councillor will be speaking as well. Mr. Hyde, if you'd like to take us through this report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this application seeks permission for the erection of a single-storey granny annex for the ancillary use of 29 Alrewes Road, which is this building here. The application is actually recommended for refusal on the grounds of the annex being an incongruous addition to the rear garden, which would harm the character and appearance of the Kings Bromley Conservation Area. Further to this, it is considered that the proposed annex would have a detrimental impact upon the private residential amenities of neighbouring properties in terms of increased overlooking and reduced privacy to the private amenity space. The application site is also subject to a certificate of lawfulness of the same scheme, which is still pending consideration. The application property highlighted there is a semi-detached, fully rendered traditional residential cottage located on the northern side of Orwas Road. To the rear, there's an enclosed garden, an off-road parking, which is accessed via a shared driveway, which is accessed off Orwas Road. The property sits within a residential area comprising of a number of different age, style, and design of properties. The application site sits within Kings Bromley Conservation Area, and the property is is subject to a proposed Article 4 direction. However, the decision to include this property is still pending consideration. The site also lies in close proximity to a Grade 2 listing building at 28 Orwas Road. This is the proposed block plan showing where the annex of the site sits towards the rear of the property, which is highlighted there. So next to the photos, photograph 1 taken on the site visit from the 18th of May 2023, which seems a lifetime away. Photograph 1 shows where the annex would be in place of the shed, and photograph 2 also shows where the shed is and where the annex would be. Photograph 3 is the view from the property of 32 Leofric Close, which looks towards the boundary of where the annex would be, which is just beyond that fence there. And photograph 4 shows where the car park shows views from the car park at Kings Bromley Village Hall, and the annex would be placed just where the shed is there. Sorry, there we go. Photograph 5 shows the access to the back of the properties, with photograph 6 showing the shared parking area. And then finally, photograph 7 shows an outbuilding that would have to be demolished in order to place the annex in its proposed location. Under the planning practice guidance 2022, outbuildings like this don't actually have planning permission to be demolished as if it's under 50 square meters, sorry, 50 cubic meters in size. And finally, these are the proposed plans, the floor plan and the proposed elevations. Overall, the proposed annex would measure 10 meters by 6 meters, would have a flat roof with a maximum height of 3.3 meters. The annex would be timbering structure and would be finished in cladding consisting of marley, cedar, lap, weatherboarding, finished in light grey. There's a kitchen window on this elevation there that would look directly into the kitchen of 32 Leofric Close. It's about 5 meters from the 2 windows. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
James, thank you very much. James Hyde, ladies and gentlemen, members, with that presentation. Thank you very much indeed for that, James, taking us through it. We have 2 speakers, and the first of whom is an objector and a neighbour. This is Mr. Paul Till, and then we will have the ward member, Councillor Richard Cox, who wishes to speak as well. So if I could just invite Mr. Till, Paul Till, please, up to the desk, where you will find a microphone awaiting your arrival. And all you have to do is press the little button in the middle and it will light up. So you have 5 minutes, Mr. Till. I don't know whether you're aware of the protocol, but you have 5 minutes. When you have 30 seconds left, then Christine on my left, she will inform you that you have 30 seconds. And if you're still speaking at the end of 5 minutes, you must stop immediately. The 5 minutes is declared. Thank you very much indeed. And your time will start as soon as you begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. My name is Paul Till. I live at 32 Leofric Close, which adjoins the application site to the north. On behalf of all objectors, I'm here to ask you to endorse the planning officer's recommendation to refuse the application on grounds of scale, inappropriate design for its siting, and its negative effect on the conservation area. For my wife and I, if this plan is accepted, we will lose the privacy of our own home, being able to be seen in our primary living space. Our conversations in our garden and in our house in the summer will be easily overheard, and the proximity of the building to ours will ensure we're here every coming and going into the building. And when sitting on our patio, we'll hear every time the toilet is flushed and subject to the smell from the stench pipe. The proposed building would run the 10-meter length of our garden and completely dominate the border, rising to a height, as James has said, of 3.3 meters and making our primary living space and garden a much darker place. The structure, termed as a mobile home, requires a screw pile foundation drilled deep into the ground, with at least 12 of these piles to support the building. It cannot be considered a caravan or a mobile home, as it is unable to support itself without them or to be moved to another location in one piece. I regard this as failing any mobility test. In my opinion, the use of a two-pronged application using an application for lawful development proposal is a flagrant attempt at circumnavigating local planning rules, which is a well-published strategy by the manufacturers of these dwellings and could, if allowed, significantly harm our conservation areas and others within the district. As residents of Kings Bromley for 34 years, we have respected and valued the conservation area within which this proposed dwelling will sit. It's completely incongruous to the surrounding brick-built buildings and will sit adjacent to a listed building, and its size and colouring makes it clearly visible from the listed village hall and street scene of the Orwas Road. There's no mitigating benefit to the conservation area or to the community from this development, only degrees of harm. The house at 29 Orwas Road is not a modern building. It's actually 17th century timber framed wattle and daub interior wall building adjoining number 31. It is noted by village historians as one of the oldest buildings in the village. And we feel that its heritage should be respected. In fact, in 2010, this was recognised by the District Council within the Conservation Area Management Plan for Kings Bromley that listed number 29 as a special interest with a proposed Article 4 directive. The proposed dwelling is a two-bedroom structure designed for the occupant to have their own visitors and, by the applicant's own admission, intended to be used as an independent home, despite being termed as an annex. It will create additional traffic over the main house. And as it stood, it will create additional traffic over the access land to the rear of 29, which belongs to number 31A, that was intended for use by the main house only, as it stood when the right-of-way was drawn up. Additionally, the scheme of work indicates the use of surrounding private land to deposit building materials and use of the village hall car park without permission. This may not affect planning, but it certainly shows the significance of what their intention is to do. In summary, the granting of either of the applications raised for this dwelling will set a dangerous precedent for this type of infill development in our village, district, and county. We therefore ask you to consider not only our right to privacy, but the protection of the village conservation area as a whole, and supporting the planning officer's recommendation to refuse this application. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Till, and you took exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds, so you timed that wonderfully well without having an intervention from Christine on my left. So thank you very much indeed for that. So there you are, members. That's the view there of the objector, Mr. Paul Till. I shall now call upon someone that is well known to you all. In fact, I think appeared at the last planning committee meeting. So Councillor Richard Cox, the ward councillor for Kings Bromley. And Councillor Cox, as you know, probably better than I do, that you've got 10 minutes. Whether you wish to use the full 10 minutes is entirely your prerogative. After 9 minutes and 30 seconds, you will be reminded that you have 30 seconds left if you're still speaking at that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, and evening members. I called in the application because of obviously various concerns, but I am pleased to see the report before you is recommending refusal, and I would urge you to obviously endorse that recommendation. Can I just bring your attention to page 11, which is in terms of the response from the parish council. I don't intend to repeat what it says in there because you no doubtly have read it. However, on behalf of the parish council, because they did make a request whether they could speak or not, but which was declined. But as ward member, that's what we're here for in those situations. I'm not too sure it's relevant to planning material, but it would be a message in a sense, if you were to approve, that the parking, if we could say that the subsequent application was amended, and this includes parking vehicles and unloading materials by goods vehicles onto the village hall newly resurfaced car park. Now you might think, well, you know where we're going with this one. There has been no discussion with or requiring permission to do that. And at the most, there would not be permission granted. So they would have to overcome the access that is quite narrow that's before you on the plan. So I think it's important that you are aware of those facts. As I say, perhaps not material planning reasons to refuse, but I think it's credible information in determining. I'd like to then move on to the fact that the policy BE2, which there's reference on page 15. I think it's quite clear there that what we have is to conserve and enhance our historic environment, and I think that's absolutely key to the this application being refused. There is contrary in terms of what was said further down by the conservation officer, that there was no objections applied. But I'm glad that the officers in determining the report have overcome that, because there are clear distinctions in possibly approving this that is likely to set precedents right through any authorities policies well and truly in the manner of the item that is likely to be proposed there. Is it mobile? Well, I'm not convinced myself that you can, when you underpin something and you pin it down, you can consider that it's a mobile unit. But that's something obviously that has to be demonstrated. I represent a ward that has a mobile home park, and I've seen those vehicles turn up and load loaders and so forth, and I've seen the sachets underneath that means actually you can move them about and so forth. When you see the finish article, they're cladded, so you don't see the fact that those homes, and they do look, but I've seen it. And I understand. I do not recognise the proposal here as a mobile home, and I think that is quite important to recognise. But it is the impact that it's going to have on the conservation area. And I think if you have a conservation area, you should have upheld everything that goes within it, to be honest. So I'm glad that the officers have addressed that situation and hereby saying that it does have an impact. And really, I would then just close by, in terms of the drawing attention to what was said on the certificate of lawfulness. Obviously, I do urge the officers in question, following the subject of tonight's decision, to determine that. And my own view would be, I'd hope that they would follow tonight's decision in how you've addressed it. So if you were to refuse it, I'm hoping that that will be the subsequent result, because otherwise we're going to have a situation where something's going to be put into it that does not represent the conservation area and has a problem. in your report, there is the human rights. I struggled with this particular item always when I was a member of this committee, and indeed as chairman. Can you use it as a reason to refuse? And it's not necessarily subject to material consideration. But let's discuss the human rights. Let's discuss how it's going to affect nearby neighbours that are going to be subjected to this. And it was as the officer indicated, you know, the one kitchen window will be overlooking and into the garden, and not only the garden, but actually the dwelling of 32 Leafrick Close. You've got open door, patio doors and everything. It's very open and light, and that has to be considered a consequence of being so near. And yet, actually, you know, if that isn't a breach of human rights, then I don't know what is. But I won't say any more. I'll let members have their say, but I would urge to endorse the officer's recommendation to refuse this application forthwith. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Cox, thank you very much indeed. Your views there greatly appreciated, and in your role there as ward councillor for Kings Bromley. Thank you. Members, some of you may have comments or questions. I think I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Cox said there, because on page 13, the above policy reflects core policy 3 of the local plan strategy, which states that development should protect and enhance the character and distinctiveness of Lichfield district. And if you want to just bear that in mind as you weigh up the pros and cons of this application. Yes, Councillor Anketel, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm surprised that the applicant hasn't taken up his opportunity to speak in favour of the proposal. I've got a couple of questions for the officer. Has the officer discussed the possibility of changing the materials of the outside of the proposed mobile home? Or
I did speak to the applicants, but they were pretty set on what they wanted. So I did ask for changes, but they wanted what they've put.
And did you discuss with them the possibility of moving the home, the annex further away from the northern fence?
Yeah, that was discussed as well, but this is the place that they prefer to have.
Okay, right. I think that's all I've got to ask.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anketel. And we now have Councillor Powell and then Councillor Mears. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is one of these cheeky applications we get from time to time where the applicants come to fly a kite and see whether they can get away with it or not. Well, I'm going to vote that we go with the officers and deny approval. It's mass, it's design, it's a conservation area, it's overlooking neighbour properties. It's definitely a fixed building, not a mobile of any shape or description. And therefore, I will move that we say no. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Powell. Councillor Mears, please.
Just one quick question. Could the issue of privacy from the kitchen window be overcome if the window was obscured?
Okay, I'll probably pass that over to James in a second, but I do know that was talked about, but it's a habitable window, it's a habitable room, and I think obscure glazed is probably inappropriate, but I'll hand over now to Artemis to answer that one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think you've just answered that question. We couldn't condition that window to be obscure glazed as it would be part of a habitable room.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, or is that it? Thank you. Okay, thank you. You finished, have you, Councillor Mears? Thank you very much indeed. And we now have Councillor Galvin, please. Councillor Galvin.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. Do we know who this accommodation is intended for? I would just think, you know, we know that housing prices are extremely high, and is it something to help family members move out, or, you know, so what's the use of it?
It's for the mother of one of the applicants.
Okay, thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Councillor Galvin? Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for the officer. At what distance do the building, this annex building, sit from the boundary, please?
I'll have to check 2 seconds. Sorry.
I think while James is just looking for that, do we have any other points or questions, members, at all? No? Okay. We have so far had a proposal by Councillor Powell to align. That's fine. Thank you. James, are you ready
It'll be
with
1
that?
metre from the
Thank you.
boundary.
Sorry?
1 metre from the boundary.
Then it's in contravention anyway, isn't it? So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Any other questions? No, thank you. Councillor Anketel, please.
And the motion to reject this, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Anketel. Thank you. Members, I think in that case, then we are probably at a point where we can go for the vote. You've had the report, you've listened to the views of the objector, the ward councillor, and you've had your questions answered by James, the planning officer, James Hyde. So we have got a proposal for refusal by Councillor Powell, which aligns itself with the officer's recommendation, and that has been seconded by Councillor Anketel. So I would ask you, please, a show of hands for those of you who wish to support the officer's recommendation for refusal, if you'd please show by raising your hands. Thank you very much. I think that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. That always makes my job so much easier. I don't even have to count. I don't really have to count, do I? Because I know it's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. We shall now move on, and I'd like to thank the objector and also Councillor Cox for speaking this evening. Thank you. We now move on to the second application, which is Lichfield South. And to take us through this, this is 23/01040/OUT-FLM. And to take us through this, as indeed the next application, the third application, it will be the Principal Planning Officer, Sarah Willits. Sarah, you've got quite a busy evening ahead of you. And so we look forward to the first part of your presentation. So this is the one at Lichfield South, if you'd like to tell us more about this report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This application is based at Lichfield South. I'm sure you're probably aware of this site. It has a mixed use at the moment, various different commercial units and office accommodation, which is located south of Lichfield. And an aerial photograph of the site. This application is a hybrid application. In other words, it is a mixture of outline and full application. So you have a combination of the both. The site, if you're not familiar with it, was a previous brickworks, which had various different consents granted over the years, which include things like additional office accommodation and even a golf range. It was an old site which was granted under the old regime of PPGs, so it came under Annex C of PPG 2. So since then, there's been a hotel, and I believe there's a David Lloyd or a sports centre there as well, and I think there's a McDonald's restaurant as well. So I'll move on. So you've got some photographs here. I'll take you through some of the photographs first. I've got some shots of the entrance, the current entrance to the site, which is taken as you approach the site from the larger roundabouts coming off the M6 toll and the A5. And that's the entrance to the actual site. And then there's the opposite view coming from Lichfield side, going towards the site, as you can see, the right-hand entrance. The entrance, looking from the entrance back out towards the A5127. So that's from the internal side. And this is the roundabout within the development. And this roundabout will be amended as part of the outline consent to accommodate for the HGV vehicles. And you can see the actual access of the site, which is off one of the arms of the roundabout. And these are shots taken around the site. So that is the entrance back out towards the original office accommodation. And this is taken, I'm sorry, the sun was particularly low because it's the time of the year. It's taken from the old Watling Street, looking back towards the site, and the mound in the background is the covered area for the tennis courts for the David Lloyd. These are the drawings which cover the site. You have quite a large expanse of sites. So you've got the original, let's see if I can get the body thing working. I actually pointed at the screen, that helps. There we go. So you've got the original, part of the original site here. You've got some of the original office buildings, which I'm sure you've come past in the past. And then you have two areas, which are this area here, which is part of the full application, and the rest of it in this darker colour is for the outline application. This is a slightly different, gives you an indicative idea of the landscape of the whole site and some of the detail in terms of sort of potential of the size of the building on the outline and some of the outlines of the buildings on the full application. This gives you an idea of the proposed street scene. Now, these are indicative. This gives you an idea of, you've got at the, oh, sorry, I've just pressed the wrong button. You've got the accommodation, which is in full, and then you've got the street scene of the cross section of the larger warehouse buildings over here. So you've got literally an idea of the sort of scale and form. But these, as I said, these are indicative because I said part of the application is in outline, which matters are reserved. This is the floor plan of the proposed office, the office building accommodation with its parking and charging points and elevations. As I said, the elevations are a bit difficult to read from this sort of scale, but you have a mixture of a darker roof with solar panels, and you have a mixture of blue bricks with red Staffordshire red bricks and some cladding materials as well, along with a quantity of glazing on the different elevations. And the layout of the drive-through area and the charging area, which is part of the full application, and an idea, well, an elevation of the drive-through building, which in this instance shown as Starbucks, and the different types of elevation there. In terms of the, as I said, in terms of the full application, there is a drive-through, an EV charging centre, and a large office accommodation for a headquarters for a large house builder. The outline application is for B1 and B1 and B8 uses with ancillary office accommodation, with parking, circulation areas, with all matters reserved apart from the actual access, which will obviously be changing as part of this scheme. The site, obviously, as you're probably aware, still remains in Greenbelt. So the development as accepted by the applicant is inappropriate, is considered inappropriate development as covered by the NPPF in their paragraph 154 to 155, and is by definition harmful. So the report in front of you, and obviously the information that the applicant has provided, outlines this in detail, and then considers whether or not what we consider to be very special circumstances, whether they actually exist or not. The applicant has fully justified the development, has provided detailed very special circumstances to overcome the harm, and the report covers the various different aspects of the design, the access, and the various other aspects of the application, which obviously weigh in favour of whether or not it's appropriate or not. There is clearly other aspects of very special circumstances relating to the previous consents which remain extant, and this site is allocated for a business use, all of which are considered to outweigh the harm in respect to those considered. The site is able to provide a 20% uplift in biodiversity, which is covered across the whole of the site. And the applications for the full application, including the outline, will be meeting BREEAM standards as well. So they have a high degree of sustainable construction format. There's been later on in terms of this process, there's been a very late objection from an agent representing owners of the adjacent sites, which include McDonald's. They have raised 6 points in terms of their objections, which include the internal roundabout design, junction modelling, trip generation, trip distribution, proposed parking provision, and the growth factors, which they're still concerned about. They have raised 3 separate objections during the application process. Highways have had an opportunity to consider all 3 of these objections, and the applicant had provided through the process illustrative details and amended transport assessment to satisfy Highways that there was no further objections. The applicant has worked proactively to overcome any concerns in respect to this application, and it's now considered that everything is now satisfied, and the application is recommended and is in front of you for approval, subject to the conditions and obviously the supplementary report in front of you as well, respect to some revisions, and no call-in or from a referral to the Secretary of State, which this has to be undertaken because it is triggered by the size of the development. So it has to go to the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed for that, taking us through that fairly complicated report. You've all had these supplementaries circulated, I believe. Is that correct? You've all received supplementaries. Okay. They were done, I think, was it 2 days? 2 days ago, I think it was. Yeah. Okay. There were just 1 or 2 points in there which need to be noted in terms of revision to some of the items in your report. So, Sarah, thank you very much indeed for that. We have a speaker, and the speaker is Mr. David Onions. Mr. David Onions is the applicant's agent, and he's represented the company Pegasus Group. And so we are familiar with the Pegasus Group here, based locally. So, Mr. David Onions, you have 5 minutes, sir. You will be familiar, I think, with the protocol. I think you've spoken here before, haven't you? Yes. So you've got 5 minutes, and then with 30 seconds still to go, Christine will let you know. And at the end of 5 minutes, you must cease speaking immediately. Thank you. Your time starts as soon as you begin. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed there to Mr. David Onions, the applicant's agent, representing the Pegasus Group. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Okay, so you've had an in-depth analysis given to you by Sarah Willits, the Principal Planning Officer. You've also heard the applicant's agent there giving a critique of why this application should be approved. I now have Councillor Salter wishes to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 46 at 19.2, the first one of that is one of the conditions, and that is the contribution towards bus stop improvements with a figure of £100,000. That's going to be quite a luxurious bus stop, I think. I know the area very well. It is in my ward. And there have long been concerns about the state of really a lack of a bus stop. It's literally the entrance to a farmland and very muddy and dangerous. And there certainly does need to be improvements. I'm wondering if there's any part of that figure, which does seem an awful lot simply for putting in a couple of bus stops, might any of that be moved towards trying to get the bus route diverted actually onto the site rather than stopping on what is a very heavily congested main road just off a major trunk system island?
Councillor Salter, thank you very much. That's a valid question, certainly. I think I'm going to hand over now to the Highways Officer from Staffordshire County Council, Mr. Mark Evans. Mark Evans is welcome here. It doesn't seem very long since we had you here just 9 days ago. So thank you very much indeed. If you'd like to answer the point made by Councillor Salter, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. Great question, Councillor Salter. As you've heard from Mr. Onions, we engaged, it seems over a year ago now, in a rather long and proactive pre-application with the applicant, whereby we raised the issue of public transport at the pre-application stage. When the applicant came to see us at pre-application stage, they were promoting taking the current X3 National Express West Midlands service, which goes between Lichfield and Birmingham at the moment, into their site, and they were going to provide a internal lay-by within their site. We advised through the pre-application stage, which subsequently materialised into the live plan application, that we could not guarantee the independent bus operator taking their vehicle into their site. There is absolutely no guarantee they will do it. They can say they will, but we have no control or guarantee of them being able to go in. It's an operator's decision. We spoke to them independently post the pre-application, and we were advised by National Express West Midlands that whilst they could, in theory, fit a vehicle into the site and turn it around, they had reservations of being able to turn right out of the site to head towards Birmingham. Therefore, it could affect their timetabling. Therefore, they may choose not to go in. Therefore, we didn't wish to see the applicant provide a white elephant within their site, spend all of their money to provide a bus stop and a lay-by within their site that may never ever be used, because we cannot convince the bus operator to go in because it's a commercial service. We cannot force them. So given our chat with National Express West Midlands, the bus operator, and a chat with the applicant, what was decided was the existing bus stop infrastructure on the Birmingham Road southbound was particularly, and I'm going to use the word dangerous. I'm not going to say poor, dangerous in our opinion. Given that we could not guarantee taking the bus into the site, given that the application in front of us had submitted a travel plan, because of the size of the application, it is required to provide a travel plan. In that travel plan, the applicant is trying to promote walking, cycling and public transport. So if we can't guarantee the bus going into the site because we can't make National Express go in, and we have a dangerous bus stop, how on earth are we and the applicant going to promote anybody who works on this site to use the bus. And it's a damn good bus service. It's a really good frequency out there. So it's not as if there's one bus a day. So we were really keen to promote the service because there's a damn good service that's currently available. So the county council took it on its own merits and used our own funds to go and start doing a preliminary design to redesign the bus stop facilities on the Birmingham Road. Now, as you know, the Birmingham Road, forgive it's a long answer, but I'm trying to explain where we've got to. The Birmingham Road is currently what I would call a higher speed road. It's not 30 at this point, okay? So anybody exiting a bus on the southbound side needs to cross the road. So we haven't got very much land where the current bus stop is. So we decided to go and find somewhere else where it was within land under the highways control, highway land, where we could provide sufficient half-decent facilities. So we've moved it closer to the entrance by the ADS sign, the directional sign, because it's all highway grass verge. Now, so we've found the land where we can provide a safe and suitable bus stop. Yep, so where you've got the ADS sign, if you can point, Sarah, to the directional sign on the left-hand side. So on photograph 2, on the left-hand side, you've got the directional sign with the 2 islands. You go up to that. So just in front of that, below that, all of that grass verge in front of that is highway land. So it's under our control. So we know something's deliverable. So we've designed a new hard standing area with a bus shelter in that location. So we know it can be delivered. It's in our land. It's under our control. The problem then came because the road is wider at that point, a pedestrian has got more road to cross without getting flattened, putting it simply. So to get over that problem, we designed in a central pedestrian refuge. With just behind or in front of the cars, which you can't see, that are trying to turn right, there's white hatched lines. So there's no cars should be driving in that because it's hatched. So we designed in a pedestrian refuge in that hatch zone where a car wouldn't be driving anyway, for a pedestrian to wait if they can't cross the whole of the road in one go. So that overcame that safety issue. Next problem was we independently, as you should do for any highway scheme, have a road safety audit carried out to make sure that it is safe. You don't mark your own homework. The advice came back that in order to make the pedestrian refuge safe, we needed to lower the speed limit. So we have to reduce the speed limit to 40 miles an hour to allow a pedestrian enough time to cross the road and to make it safe. And that was the result of the independent road safety audit the county council got back. So in order to reduce the speed limit, it costs money. In order to put the central refuge in, it costs money. In order to lay the foundations for the bus stop and that facility costs money. And just to add insult to injury, to reduce the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit also means we've got to revise the road markings, because the road markings for a 50-mile-an-hour road are different to a 40-mile-an-hour road. So that's the southbound stop. Moving to the northbound stop, in negotiations with the applicant, the northbound stop, which is just by the McDonald's sign, it's basically a flag on a lighting column. So anybody in this weather will be standing out in the cold, in the rain, etc., etc. Again, in discussions with ourselves and the applicant, we have on photograph 2 or in photograph 1, just above the white van, next telegraph or next lighting column up from the white van, looking northbound on photograph 1. We're moving it in that direction. It's too close. It's too close to where we've moved the southbound stop. So to stop having, again, the road safety audit picked it up, too close, you could have accidents because you could have 2 buses stopped close to each other, etc., etc. So we've decided and agreed with the applicant to move the northbound bus stop to the other side of the junction on land that, again, can deliver the bus stop. So what you are getting is 2 moved bus stops, 2 enhanced facilities where somebody can wait potentially in the dry and be lit. Unfortunately, the bill came to what it is. The bill was higher, and I will admit this. The county council has stumped the design costs, which are in double figures. The county council has taken that hit itself to get this facility and to get this agreement. The developer has kindly agreed to pay £100,000, which is not the total cost. The county council is taking the other to improve the facilities for passenger, which we currently think are dangerous. And I do apologise for the very long-winded explanation, but I think it's important to understand it does seem a lot of money, but that's the reason and the conclusion we've reached.
Thank you. Chairman, if I may just come back with one.
Yes, of
little
course.
point. I wish all explanations were as thoroughly clear as that. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And I can fully understand the why it's £100,000 plus. Just a little addition to that, there is a second bus route now in use on that route, the 63, which serves Wall and Shenston. And I would ask if it's at all possible, could you possibly forward me a design plan of the proposals for the positions and layouts, so that I can let Shenston and Wall know all about it, because it has an impact on Wall as well, of course. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, if I can just add my thanks there as well to Mark Evans. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Very comprehensive. I'm now going to ask my Vice Chairman, Councillor Checkland, who wishes to speak. Thank you.
I'm going to ask a second question of Mark. Yes or no? Is there a central reservation for the second bus stop?
No.
So how is that not as dangerous? Is that because the road's narrower?
The second bus stop is on the northbound side. They don't need to cross the road. The south.
You're right. Stupid question. Forget the yes or no.
The southbound stop. If you live in Lichfield, you'd be on the southbound side, photograph 2, looking towards the ADS sign. You work on the opposite side of the road. You need to cross the road. If you're going back home at the end of your shift to Lichfield, you're on the side of the white van in photograph 1. You don't need to cross the road. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. I'm glad I know what I'm talking about.
Thank you. I liked the juxtaposition there of a long answer and a short answer, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Checkland, you finished with your questions, I take it, have you, for the time being at least?
I'll think of some more silly ones.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else wish to raise questions? Yes, Councillor Powell, please.
Yeah, this is a brownfield site. It's a very useful thing we're doing here. It's really going to promote the district. Therefore, I will move that we accept it. Thank you.
Indeed there, Councillor Powell. Councillor Harvey-Coggins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose that. I'd like to second that we move this. I think the amount of EV chargers is fantastic, and that's a really good thing for the Lichfield area. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We'll go to the vote in just a moment, but if I can just comment on that last point of yours. It's an interesting modern phenomenon, isn't it, that you have to create something to occupy people's time while they recharge their EVs. In the world that I live in, you pop into a petrol station, 3 minutes later, you're back underway. So, but I know they call it progress, but I'm not entirely convinced. Right, we have we have a proposal by Councillor Powell for approval of this application in front of you at the moment, and that has been seconded by Councillor Harvey-Coggins. So, members, I'd like you to please show if you are in favour of approving this application, please. If you'd please raise your hands. And I think for the second time this evening, that's a unanimous decision. I thank you very much indeed. So in conclusion, I can tell you that 23/01040/OUT FLM has been approved by this planning committee here on the 24th of January 2024. I'd like to thank the officers concerned, Sarah Willits, thank you, and also Mark Evans, of course. We are joined this evening by Harjit Gill, the legal officer, hasn't been called upon yet, but there's still time, Harjit, thank you. And also I have with me on my right Artemis Christofi, who is the not just the principal planning officer, but in charge of the planning department here. And also Christine Lewis, who is the, what's your title? Oh, the Elections and Democratic Manager. She's here in capacity. Members, we now move on to, and I'd like to thank all those who've just attended and leaving the meeting now. We now move on to the final application of the evening, which is 23/01216/COUM. This is an application which has caught the imagination of many people in Lichfield, I'm sure, for all sorts of reasons, good and bad, perhaps, in some cases. So once again, I'm going to, this is the Debenhams, ex-Debenhams building in the precinct. And I'm going to ask the Principal Planning Officer once again, Sarah Willits, to take us through this report, please, members. So if you'd like to cast your eyes towards the screen. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the former Debenhams store, which is located at the end of the Three Spires shopping complex. So it has a frontage onto the complex, which forms like an end stop to the shopping centre, and the rear of it borders the main Birmingham Road running through Lichfield. And that road takes you out towards Street Hay and the junction with the A38. This is an aerial shot of the development. You can see the larger building, which was the larger retail unit. It's quite a big centre, basically, retail unit at the end. And here you have some shots. I went out again the other day because I thought the shots looked a bit miserable. So I thought I'd better put some brighter pictures on because they looked a bit dowdy. But this is the photograph one, shows the route as you walk up the shopping complex in Baker Lane up towards the Debenham, the former Debenham store, should I say. And photograph two is of the top end of the shopping complex, which is the 4 retail units which are proposed to be demolished as part of the proposal. And you have a bit more of an oblique view of the front of Debenhams in photograph 3, showing you the sort of the frontage, and then one from basically the centre with the at the moment it's the seating area for Costa at the front, and you can see obviously the form of the building and the height of that building. These are shots to the rear. So this is the rear service yard. As I said, there's a couple of shots there, photographs 5 and 6. Didn't get a picture, but there is, I did question the applicant. There are some cycle stands or public cycle stands which are located on the opposite side to this white van. And as I said, they actually form part of the entrance to the shopping mall. And these shots are taken from that end, from the actual service delivery end, which is Greswold Close, is it? Greswold, Gresley Row. Sorry, Gresley Row, looking back towards the cinema, which we can you can actually see in that area there. That's the edge of the cinema building, or the proposed cinema building, and this is the rear of the building which exists at the moment, which is onto Birmingham Road. And then you've got some shots, a shot of the frontage of the Debenhams building with the pillar, and the existing service yard from Frog Lane, which is on the foreground, which you can see the end of the multi-storey car park. So we have some plans here for you showing the layout of the building, how the building will be converted. This is basically on the ground floor though. So you have the ground floor building with the cinema. So you've got the cinema building and the food and beverage areas, with these a new piazza being created as part of the removal of the original buildings which used to sit here, with landscaping and paving, and these areas outdoor seating areas for the new food and beverage outlets. Some elevation or some floor plans of the cinema building inside and how the layout will work. This is within the confines of the existing building rather than anything else. So you have 2 floors of cinema complex with complementary food and beverage and leisure for uses. So there's a second floor plan and roof plan that shows, as I said, shows you've got various terracing. So you'll see that in the elevations, which is the reformed building or the terrace, the new area and entrance form of the building with the new terrace area. So there'll be alterations to the roof to accommodate the new terrace, which is all glazed, so people can actually sit up there, have a meal and look down towards the city centre and the cathedral. And this is the rear of the building. There are some new windows been punched in the back to give it a little bit more articulation. And there's some service doors which have been, as much as possible, located in the most central area of these. There's not always possible, depending on obviously where the areas are, but there are some entrances or fire exits on the back. I think that is all of the pictures. As you're aware, it is a formal retail store. It was the former Debenhams, which has been empty for some time. This represents a conversion and refurbishment and remodelling of an existing building, which will create the cinema with new glazed areas and new outlets for food and beverage. It does include the demolition of 4 units to open up the city and the wider Birmingham Road site. It is considered appropriate in terms of a city centre use. It is very good regeneration of an existing building. As you're probably aware and you heard from the last presentation, the authority is facing a climate crisis, and we were looking to achieve better provision in terms of sustainability. And this is good sustainable development because we are looking at the reuse and refurbishment of a building rather than full demolition and removal of it and redevelopment. The design is considered good and acceptable, and there are no objections from the Conservation Officer. The servicing of the building is going to be provided via the existing service area. This has been a part of debate in respect to the highways officers who considered the previous scheme was not satisfactory. So the servicing has been revised and is now considered acceptable. Highways and the applicant has worked very proactively to engage and amend those details. This site will have an ability to employ a lot more people. It forms part of the wider regeneration of the city with benefits to the local community and for the day and night economy, and is in front of you and recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Sarah Willits, thank you very much indeed for taking us through that. Your work is almost done for this evening, apart from perhaps having to answer a few questions from members, but thank you very much once again for doing that. Can I just alert you to the fact, members, which I should have perhaps said originally, and this is under item B on the agenda, which covers Lichfield District Council applications on council-owned land, and any items submitted by members or officers of this council. So that's why it's here. And if you look on page 60, I think it is, it just outlines that as well, and says that the reason for being on the agenda, this is a major planning application which is being reported to the planning committee due to the council land ownership and connections, interests in the site, and forms wider interest regarding the city redevelopment, including the related demolition of the multi-storey car park. So we have 2 speakers this evening for this, and the first of whom is a little bit like Councillor Cox, quite well known to many of us, because I know that Bernice Eisner, who is representing the Lichfield Civic Society, has been to nearly as many planning committee meetings as I have in the last 5 years, because you're very much a regular here, Bernice. So I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you the protocol, because you know, don't you? So if you'd like to take up your position by the microphone, then you have 5 minutes and your time starts once you commence. Thank you very much indeed. So this is Bernice Eisner, an objector, Lichfield Civic Society. Thank you. Bernice Eisner, thank you very much indeed, and for voicing the concerns there of the Lichfield Civic Society. Thank you very much. I know you work very hard and assiduously for that particular very valuable organisation to the city. Thank you. We will now move on to the next speaker. The next speaker is Matthew Sobich from Savills. And Mr. Sobich is the applicant's agent. I think you will know by now exactly how this works. You've got 5 minutes, and with 30 seconds to go, you will be reminded that you only have 30 seconds. Your time commences once you begin. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much there to Matthew Sobich from Savills, the applicant's agent. Thank you very much indeed for that. So you've heard, if you like, opposing views there. You've heard the views of the Civic Society where they have some reservations, and then you have the positive attributes which are being conveyed to you there by Mr. Sobich. So members, we have Councillor Salter first. Councillor Salter, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, some interesting points made there from both parties. That if I can go to the loss of car park facility, we do of course have our own council car park, which is in very close proximity and now open to the public. And of course, it is the building itself is directly across the road from our Cross City train station at the city station, which brings the public transport element, and of course is with the access through close to the proposed bus station. The building itself isn't going to be just cinema. There are several F&D outlets, etc., which of course brings more prosperity to the area. And I'm hoping, and I've mentioned this before, not having seen any detailed plans yet in respect of the interior use, but I'm hoping that the auditorium may well be, if not all, some of them multi-purpose, whereby they could be used for lecture theatres and similar things when not in use as a cinema. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there. That covers everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Salter. Do we have any other speakers? Yes, Councillor Ashton, then Councillor Powell. Thank you. Councillor Ashton, please.
Can I ask who the current tenants are of the units scheduled for demolition? Do you have a list?
Through you, Chair, I don't have a list, but I'm aware, I think from the photographs, I think there is a small cafe in the corner, which you can probably see there, that one. Oh, hang on, let me get back to there. Then there is, I think there's like some sort of card shop or something. There is another type of food outlet, which is, and then there's this one here.
Sarah, could I just interrupt for a
But we don't
moment,
have
please?
names of
I
the
believe
people.
Artemis has an answer there for you. So if I can bring Artemis Christophe in, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to highlight that although it's a valid point, it's not actually a material planning consideration that to be taken into account as part of this application in front of you this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you there to Artemis. We now have Councillor Powell, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it? But it's here now and it needs passing and it needs getting on with. So I move acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Powell. And then we've got Councillor Harvey Coggins and also Councillor Rushton. Any others? Can I just say on that about it's been a long time coming. I'm probably one of the few in this room tonight who can remember the original cinema in Lichfield, the Regal Cinema, which many of you will know where it is, I'm sure, but it's that lovely Art Deco facade which sits at the bottom of Green Hill. And I have very fond recollections of watching Cliff Richard in Summer Holiday there in about 1960. So there we go. So yeah, it has been a very long time coming. We've been without a dedicated cinema in Lichfield for quite some time. But anyway, I now wish to bring in Councillor Harvey Coggins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to say that Lichfield does have a rich history of cinema use from the Regal, and then also to the Arts Centre and what was the Civic Hall.
Yeah.
So it will be great to have a cinema in Lichfield again. I think that's fantastic. And I know it doesn't relate, but I can only hope that maybe perhaps we do have some improvements in the bus service so that people can use it. But I know that that is not part of what we're taking into consideration today. But yeah, I'd like to second this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have a seconder there. That's Councillor Harvey Coggins. I know that Councillor Rushton, you wish to speak. I'm not going to cut you off just because we're going to go to the vote. But if you'd like to just make your comments known, please, to us. Thank you.
Well, Councillor Harvey Coggins beat me to the bullet there on seconding, but I just wanted to make the point of I always enjoy voting on these because, as you pointed out, it's been not in use for several years now, and it's always good to see something be put back into use, and I think it will be a productive use of space.
Thank you very much indeed for those comments. Members, I'm going to ask you to vote on this in a moment, but just to let you know that there's been a proposal by Councillor Powell to approve this application in front of you, and it has been subsequently seconded by Councillor Harvey Coggins. So once again, I'm going to ask for a show of hands, please. All of those in favour of this application, please, for the building of Debenhams. So I believe that again is unanimous. I don't think we've ever had an evening where we've had three and they've all gone through so cleanly and unhindered. Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to thank the speakers. Bernice Eisner, thank you very much on behalf of the Civic Society. And also, of course, we had Matthew Sobich from Savills speaking on behalf of the applicant. Members, that concludes the proceedings here at Lichfield District Council this evening. So I can tell you then that 23/01216/COUM has been passed by this planning committee here at Lichfield on the 24th of January 2024. I look forward to seeing you all again at the next planning committee, whenever that may be. And if I can thank all the officers who've participated this evening, I'm not going to name them all, I've named them already, I think, earlier. Thank you to all the officers. I'd like to thank all of you members as well for your participation, and also members of the public who've participated, and those who've been watching remotely online on the YouTube channel as well. I now declare this meeting closed, having reset my watch to the correct time, which is 7:25. Thank you very much and good night.